Hello, everyone.
Morning, Rabbi.
It's good to see you again, Pablo. The most loyal loyal one in the class. Very nice. So actually, as I mentioned last week, the week before, we're in Aruba now. We took over the Chabad of Aruba here. And today, actually, at 2:30, we are flying back to Florida. So honestly, we are on our way to the airport, so to speak. But I wanted to make sure that we got this in. I didn't want to skip it. So what we're gonna do is a shorter version, let's just say. A shorter version.
Short.
Yeah, we'll make it short of what we usually do. Hi, Zach. Welcome. I was just saying that we're, like I mentioned before, we're in Aruba now, but we're actually flying at 2:30 back to Florida. So this week I'm gonna make it short, so we can catch our flight. But welcome everyone to the class. So what I'm gonna do is I want to maybe elaborate a little bit on what we spoke about last week, and then take it a step further. So just a quick review about what we said last week. Last week we spoke about when a child becomes bar mitzvah in middle of a mitzvah. Yeah, let's say there's a certain mitzvah that takes time to do, and he became bar mitzvah in middle. The example we gave was the mitzvah of Sirat HaOmer, which is between Passover and Shavuot. Between Passover and Shavuot, there's a mitzvah to count 49 days in order, you count up to the holiday of Shavuot, and there's a law that you can only make a blessing on that mitzvah. It's only counted as doing the mitzvah if you don't miss any days. Yeah, if you missed first, second, you missed any of the days of the 49 days, then when you count the next day, you're lacking in the count. You missed the day, so you kind of missed out on the mitzvah. It's too late. That's the way it usually works. So a boy that becomes bar mitzvah in between Passover and Shavuot, seemingly all the days that he counted, let's say he did the mitzvah before his bar mitzvah, but it didn't count because he wasn't actually obligated. He wasn't actually bar mitzvah yet. So the question is, do we acknowledge the fact that he has that he counted the days until now, or do we say, oh, it was before his bar mitzvah, so it's as if it never happened, and he never counted those days, and he can't just come in middle and pick up the mitzvah all of a sudden in middle. And therefore, what that would mean in practical terms, what's the difference is that he can't make a blessing on it. Yeah, because we know we don't make a blessing in vain. We only make a blessing when necessary. So if the mitzvah doesn't count, then he's not allowed to make a blessing. A funny but similar idea we spoke about last week was if someone, the night right before his bar mitzvah. Yeah, we know in Judaism the days start, the calendar day starts not at 12 a.m. but it starts at nightfall. So let's say he had a meal the day before, the evening before his bar mitzvah starts, and then he finished the full meal. He did the Birkat HaMazon, the blessing after meals, and then night fell. It became night. It became the next calendar day. Now he's officially 13 years old. Now he's bar mitzvah. So do we say that the benching, but he's still full? So do we say the benching that he did before counts, and he doesn't have to do the Birkat HaMazon again? Or do we say, oh, you know what, it didn't count. He wasn't obligated then. It's as if he never did it, and he has to do the Birkat HaMazon again. That's the question that we posed last week, and we brought a proof from there's a part of the Talmud that says that if someone was forced, if someone, I'm skipping the back and forth. The conclusion is if someone has moments or times where they're sane and then insane, normal and crazy, which the law is if someone's not normal, someone's insane, then they're not obligated to keep Torah mitzvahs because they're not really capable, just like a child. They're not really capable. So if someone goes in and out of these, phases, and let's say it's the night of the Seder, that's the example it gives. It's the night of the Seder, and there's a mitzvah to eat matzah, and what happened was he kind of snapped, for a bit of time and whatever, and then he ate matzah while he wasn't sane, and then he snapped back and he was back to normal after a few hours, whatever. So the question is, do we say that the matzah that he ate already when he was insane, does that count? Or does he have to eat matzah again? And the Talmud says there that he has to eat matzah again. Because if someone does a mitzvah, when they're not obligated, it's as if like they didn't do a mitzvah. Not literally at all, but in regards to this topic, it's as if they never did the mitzvah itself. Maybe they did something good, but they didn't do the mitzvah itself of eating matzah. So since they ate matzah when the person in the story ate matzah when he wasn't normal, wasn't sane, it doesn't count, and the person has to eat matzah again. So that would tell us. We said that would tell us for the child that becomes bar mitzvah, whatever he did before his bar mitzvah, which is very similar to the idea of someone being insane. They both are not obligated, and then on another stage, when the person became sane or when the kid became bar mitzvah, now they are obligated. Just like we said about the matzah that it didn't count, so too for the child, seemingly the same logic would apply, and it would not count, and therefore he would have to do a benching again, even though he benched before his bar mitzvah officially started. He would have to do it again. Or in regards to the Svirat HaOmer, which is the classic case of this discussion, is that whatever he counted, whatever amount of 49 days that he counted before his bar mitzvah does not count, and therefore he can't just come in middle of the counting. He missed days and it's too late. Not his fault, but that's just the law, what the law would be. That's seemingly the way to look at it. But then we showed that there's a Rambam, Maimonides, which contradicts this. The Rambam writes that if a boy becomes bar mitzvah between Pesach and Pesach Sheni, I'll say briefly, I explained it last week, there's two Pesachs. If someone missed out on the first Pesach, this is in regards to the carbon, regards to the offering of Pesach, the Passover offering. If he missed out on it, he has a second chance. It's a whole story in the Torah, how it happened. But the point is that there is a second chance to bring the Pesach offering a month later. Okay, so 15th of Nisan is Passover. So you're supposed to bring the Passover offering the afternoon before, so you can eat it at the Seder. So a month later, the 14th of Iyar, is when the second Passover is. So let's say a boy becomes bar mitzvah between these two dates, within the 30 days between. So on the one hand, he was there by the Seder. He was part of the mitzvah of the Passover offering, but he wasn't bar mitzvah yet, and now he is. So do we say that the first Passover counts for him or not? And the Rambam writes, seemingly based on what we said until now, it wouldn't count, and he would have to do a new offering because he did that. The Seder night was before his bar mitzvah, so it doesn't count. Whatever was done before he was obligated doesn't really count. So seemingly he should have to bring a new offering, just like anyone that missed out on the first Pesach. But the Rambam writes no, that if he was included, if they counted if they had him in mind with the first Passover offering, then he doesn't have to bring a second one, a new one by the second Pesach. So that seemingly shows us that it does count when he does before. That's the contradiction between the two things, two laws. So what we answered last week was that there's a big difference between a child and between someone that's insane. Seemingly, as now we compared them, they're both not obligated, and then the person became sane, or the child became bar mitzvah. But we made a distinction, a difference between them. Child. Someone that's insane, there's no we're preparing them for when they become sane. But a child, there's the whole idea of education, that when they become bar mitzvah, they should already know what to do. Everyone has bar mitzvah lessons. or in general, things like that. They learn how to put on tefillin. Yeah, I know for us, 2 months before the bar mitzvah, we practice putting on tefillin for 2 months before. There's an idea that when the bar mitzvah day comes, you want to know how to do the mitzvah. Or if someone just starts on that day, he's going to miss out on a lot. So there's a mitzvah, this idea of education before the bar mitzvah, so the person can be ready. On the other hand, by an insane person, there's no idea of that, like education before. So in very short, what we said last week was, since the Torah needs you to prepare for your bar mitzvah, prepare for your time of obligation, in order that you should know what to do. So therefore, the Torah wants you to, be involved in the mitzvahs before the bar mitzvah. So Torah, in other words, Torah is acknowledging that time before the bar mitzvah. Torah is acknowledging it by saying, "Oh, you got to practice, got to prepare." Since Torah was telling you that, so therefore it counts. Torah acknowledges it. You can't say as if it never happened. Yeah, Torah itself is telling you to do it. So back to the examples we said. Let's say the Sfirat Omer, the counting of the Omer. All the days that he counted before his bar mitzvah, Torah was telling him to do it in order to practice. So therefore, we can't say it's insignificant; it doesn't count. And it does, it's still there, and therefore he would not have, therefore he would be able to just jump in the middle of the mitzvah and actually make a blessing on it. He's really doing the mitzvah here. Same thing with the blessing after meals. We said that in conclusion, we said is that since the Torah tells him to practice that, before his bar mitzvah, the Torah acknowledges the blessing that he did before his bar mitzvah started. That was the conclusion of last week. Again, just for all those that joined, I just want to mention that Hindi and I are in Aruba and we have a flight at 2:30, so I'm keeping this class short. I might be running through a little quick. Please bear with me. I wanted to bring out this idea with an example, and then I'm going to take it a step further. There's a Gemara, a piece of the Talmud in Tractate Psachim, which is obviously, you can guess, Psachim is all about Pesach. So it says there that if someone is traveling, the example it gives is a caravan, because in those days that was like long distance travel, was in a caravan through the desert or whatever. Someone is joining a caravan or by boat, and they're not planning. I think the example was they're not planning on being back before Pesach started. So what the Talmud is dealing with is, do they have to clean their house for Pesach? Yeah, we all know about that. Trying to clean the house before Pesach, getting rid of all the chametz, all the leavened bread and things like that. So the Talmud wants to know: does this person who's not planning on being home have an obligation to clean out their house before they leave, before they go on their trip, or not? It's a pretty valid question. So the Talmud says, it depends. Depends how close to Passover are they leaving? And what's the number it gives? In conclusion, it gives 30 days. If someone leaves before 30 days, before Pesach, then he doesn't have to clean his house. But if he leaves within the 30 days before Pesach, within the 30 days leading up to Passover, to the holiday, that he does have an obligation to clean his house. Now, the question is, what's the difference between before 30 and after 30? Yeah, I remember this came up. I learned this tractate when I was in 10th grade, second year in yeshiva. And I remember the teacher explained this to us. What's the difference between 30 days and before 30 days and after 30 days? Seemingly, the whole idea was that he's not planning on coming home before Passover, so he should not have to clean, or he should have to clean. Yeah, whichever one. What's the idea between before 30 days and after 30 days? So what I remember is that it was explained that there's a law that you're supposed, before 30 days before a holiday, you should already start learning about the holiday, learning the laws of the holiday, preparing for the holiday, especially Passover, which has a lot of laws. So what's said is that this, from that time when your person's supposed to start getting ready for the holiday, in a way it's more that law is more about learning. In the shul, in the synagogue, they need to talk about it, get people ready. But since that already starts the Pesach season, so to speak, the Passover season, so even though the mitzvah itself of getting rid of chametz only is the day before Passover, but there's already like a buildup. You have to get yourself ready. So then when the day before Passover comes, you're able to burn your chametz. If you don't clean your house before, and all of a sudden when the time of the mitzvah comes, you try to jump in and get ready quickly, it's not going to happen. You need to have the days before. Yeah, I'm sure we all have the Passover cleaning stress. You need the time before to prepare. It's that, and then when the mitzvah comes, you're ready. But if someone's when the mitzvah comes of the day before Passover to burn the chametz, and then all of a sudden starts doing everything, they're not going to be ready in time. So we see the same idea that this 30-day period before Passover, even though the mitzvah itself didn't start, when does the mitzvah start? The day before Passover. That's when we need to burn the chametz. That's when we need to burn the leavened bread. The mitzvah itself, that's the time, similar to the bar mitzvah. The person only becomes obligated at the time of the bar mitzvah. But still, Torah acknowledges the time before as getting ready for the mitzvah. We don't expect that when the mitzvah comes, that's when you start scrambling. That doesn't make sense. Rather, there's a whole period before where you're supposed to be getting ready for the mitzvah, and then the mitzvah comes. So that's another example where you see this idea that we said that when just like by a child, that they have to get ready for the bar mitzvah. So when the bar mitzvah comes, when the time of obligation comes, they're already able to do all those mitzvahs that they need to do. That's just to elaborate a little more of what we spoke about last week. The other example we gave last week was when it comes to Brit Milah. I'm not going to get into length, but we spoke about it that someone that if the 8th day after a baby boy is born, they get a Brit Milah, even if it's on Shabbos. Usually you can't do something like that on Shabbos. You can't draw blood on Shabbos, but there's a special law. If it's the 8th day, you do the bris on Shabbos, the Brit Milah on Shabbos. But the question is, what happens if they don't have a knife or whatever, the cutting tool for the bris Milah? They want to go make the knife quickly, but they want to make the knife quickly, but they're not allowed to make a knife on Shabbat. So do we say that just like we kind of push away Shabbat for the Brit Milah itself? Do we push away Shabbat even for preparing for the Brit Milah? Now it's an argument, and in the end of the actual halacha, the actual laws, you're not allowed to. But there is an opinion that says that even to make a knife for the Brit Milah pushes away Shabbos. Why? Because he calls it hechsher mitzvah. Hechsher means something that making it ready for the mitzvah. Yeah, let's say for a lulav and esrog, for Sukkot, you need to cut it from the tree and have it. So it's not the mitzvah. The mitzvah isn't to cut the esrog from the tree, but part of getting ready for the mitzvah is to take it off the tree. So that would be called hechsher mitzvah, like preparing for the mitzvah. So he holds, and not only a bris milah pushes off Shabbos, but even preparing for the mitzvah push off Shabbos. So here again, you see this idea where getting ready for a mitzvah is acknowledged by the Torah as significant, so much so that it even pushes off Shabbos, according to some opinions. That's what we see. But I noticed that in the one of the talks of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he kind of does away with this conclusion, and he doesn't finish off. So I don't know what the law is in that, but I wanted to share what he says about this whole thing, and maybe some lessons from it actually also, and then we'll wrap it up. So what he says is like this. One thing I mentioned last week, not at length, and this really should be its own class, but the law of education, that to educate a child, not in learning Torah, but I'm talking about in regards to doing mitzvahs. It's a whole discussion. If it's the Torah tells us to educate a child, or the rabbi said that we need to educate a child. Does it come from the Torah itself, or is it just the rabbi's set that's practical? Now, the reason why this is a discussion, obviously, is because it doesn't make sense to tell a child that you need to do something. I mean, sorry, I'm not talking about modern parenting that you don't tell a child what to do at all. No, I don't mean like that. But you can't obligate what's the whole idea that children are not obligated in mitzvahs until their bar mitzvah, because they don't have the capacity, the proper choice-making responsibility to be able to do the mitzvahs and be responsible for it and accountable for it. So In other words, you cannot obligate a child in the mitzvot, because the child's not capable. So to say a child has to, do, a certain mitzvah doesn't really make sense. You can't, even if you want to say it's part of education, it's hard to say that a child is obligated to do it as education. So the opinions that say it's still an obligation is they say that the parent has to do it, whatever. It's complicated and nuanced. But the point that I'm trying to bring out is that, and this is what the Rebbe points out. He says that the whole idea is that you can't obligate a child to do a mitzvah. So how can we say that the Torah would say that a child needs to prepare for his bar mitzvah before his bar mitzvah? In other words, I'm saying that we said until now that the Torah acknowledges the time before bar mitzvah, because how are you going to be ready? So, but now he was saying that no, you can't say that, because you cannot obligate a child. Fine, you're right, the child won't be ready, but you can't obligate it. He's not capable of being out, so to speak. He's not capable, responsible, accountable to be obligated. It's not possible. Fine, you need him to prepare. I don't know, but you can't obligate him. That idea of not being able to obligate a child stays. And therefore, he kind of pushes away everything that we just said until now, which he used to think like that also. If you go in earlier volumes of his books, he actually says the point that I said until now. But then this is one of the last volumes. He says, you know what? I don't think it's because of this idea you can't obligate a child. He kind of takes away what he said before. But what about the point that you need to be ready to do a mitzvah? He says, you know what? The Torah acknowledges, the human condition, so to speak, and knows that you can't just jump in and be able to do all the mitzvahs right away. So the Torah gives you that time and space to educate yourself, to get ready to do all the mitzvahs. For example, he gives an example. He says, think about the Jews in the desert. They received the Torah on Mount Sinai, all at once, so to speak. Before, similar to Bar Mitzvah, they weren't obligated to do the mitzvahs before they received the Torah, and now when they got the Torah, they were obligated to do the mitzvahs, just like a Bar Mitzvah. That's the whole idea of a Bar Mitzvah. But before you weren't obligated to do the mitzvahs, now you are. So that we celebrate, because now Hashem, we have commandments from God. We have opportunities to be able to connect with Hashem, to do mitzvahs, to do what He wants. So think about it. The Jews, when they got the Torah at Mount Sinai, all of a sudden they had all these laws, all these mitzvot, and it's impossible, obviously, for them to know how to do everything. And it took time to get used to it, to learn. So obviously, no one's going to say that, the Jews were sinning, because they weren't ready. You can't say that. The part of the time that it took for them to educate themselves and get used to all the laws and learn all the laws and everything, that Torah acknowledges that time, that it takes some time, and it's not considered sins or something. I'm saying something extreme, so I have to be careful with words. But something along those lines, and it's not considered. If they were doing something wrong, it wasn't considered bad, because it's all part of the process of being able to do all the mitzvahs. That's the whole idea. And Torah acknowledges the human condition, so to speak, in that way, where a person needs time to get ready, to get used to everything and to learn everything. So he says that just like in the time of the desert, even though they became obligated right when they got the Torah, we still say, that it took them time to get used to everything, and Torah acknowledges that, and it was okay, it was all fine. So too with a child by bar mitzvah. He says, no, we're not going to say that a child before his bar mitzvah is obligated to get ready and to know how to do everything. Maybe the rabbis say to do that, but Torah doesn't say that. The Torah itself doesn't say that. Rather, the way from Torah's perspective, a child would become bar mitzvah and then start his process then. Start getting used to everything then. That's how the Torah would really look at it. And you know what? He might make mistakes and he might not follow every law, and that's okay, because it's part of the learning process. Yeah, in other words, in very short, what his point is that there's a learning process, and Torah acknowledges that, and Torah is okay with that, and therefore it's there's no issue. Therefore, Torah it takes away from what we said before, because now Torah is not acknowledging the time before the bar mitzvah. Rather, is only it's saying that from bar mitzvah on is a learning process. Now I'm going to finish off with this, and then we'll leave it for this time. Unfortunately, I have to cut it short. He says this helps us understand something about Avraham Avinu, about Abraham. It says Abraham served God his entire. Where's it quoted? The Zohar and other places. It says Avraham Avinu served God his entire life. It says Avraham Zaken Baba Yamim, all his days he served God. But we know there's an argument when exactly. But Avraham Avinu, he was born into a family that served idols. Either he was some opinions say he was 48 when he discovered the one God, so to speak, or he was, even some people say it was 3. But the point is, there was some time it took that he was part of a family that served idols until he discovered the one God. How do you say he served God his whole life? But based on what we said, then it can make sense. Torah acknowledges a growing process. Torah acknowledges that, and therefore, from when he was born until he was 3 or until he was 48, that was all part of his process of discovering Hashem, and discovering that there's only one God, and that you should serve him, etc., etc. So all that learning process, all that time, that is all Torah acknowledges that. Obviously he might have served idols, in his first few years with his family and things like that. But it was all part of his learning process, all part of him getting to where he got to in conclusion. And Torah acknowledges that. So obviously, the lesson for us is, first of all, obviously we don't have to be perfect, and especially since we know we all have what to learn, and we all have we don't know everything, and especially when it comes to Torah mitzvahs. Sometimes it's hard to know all the nitty-gritty details. We have to do our part, learn what we need to learn. But Torah obviously acknowledges the learning process, and that's all considered part of what Hashem wants. Just like he said, Abraham served God all his days. Meaning that even the days where he was part of his idol worshiping family, that was still him serving God, because he was growing and getting closer and closer. So that's, I think, a very strong lesson. It kind of ruins everything we said before, though. So I don't know. In conclusion, now according to this, whatever a child did before his mitzvah is not acknowledged by the Torah. So it throws us back. I don't know the conclusion. I haven't found anywhere that addresses this, because this is one of his later books. So no one really, he never got back to it or finished it off, and I haven't found yet anyone that comments on it. So yeah, that's it for today. Maybe next time I'll find someone that speaks about it and brings it back to the the benching or the counting of Sphira. But I wish everyone a blessed day. We are going to see you in Florida soon. Can't wait to be back. Amazing.
Thank you very much.
Everyone. Of course. All righty. Have a good one. Bye-bye.